Well, it's my great pleasure to welcome Bruce Douglas. Bruce was in the BSAP and various branches of the BSAP. And Bruce, we'd love to hear your story. By the way, where did you start off at school? Where did you go to school?
I started in Chipinga,
Oh,
Chipinga Junior for 4 years. Then went to Eagle for 4 years,
gosh.
and that was special school, that one. And then to Peterhouse for 4.5 years.
My word.
And
So you and I kind of, I mean, I lived in Chipinga just next to the school next to the church, which was at the top of the road there, the Anglican church.
when did you get there? You born there?
No, I wasn't born in Chipinga. I only arrived in Chipinga when I was about 12 years old. And then I
Oh,
also went to Peterhouse. I was in Paget, was it? Yeah, Paget.
yeah, Paget.
And
I was in Kansas. And
okay,
if you know
and
Peterhouse, people in Paget are like a different country.
yeah,
They're not, so unless you play sport with them or in the same class.
yeah.
What
My
year did you get there? Well, what year
well,
did you leave?
well, I'm 67 now. How old are you now?
I'm 71, so probably didn't overlap. He must have been a scrap when I was
You
leaving.
were there when my brother was there, I think. My brother was
I was
Andre
there
van Sale.
60, 66 to
Yeah.
70.
Yeah, I was probably there in about 71.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I My brother was in Malvern. His name was Andre van Sale. And he did a lot of
How
the
old is he now? How old is
Andre,
Andre?
same age as you.
I'm getting
Okay,
too
Bruce,
close to
over
that.
to you.
Yeah, so after school, I went to university in Natal, did agriculture. And because while we were there, 72 arrived and the war hotted up. And, like everybody else, I was expecting to go into the army. But a friend of mine who'd left the year before said I got into the police and it was pretty good. So I thought, yeah, I don't think I want to go to the army. I'm boarding school. I don't really need a repeat of it. So I applied to the police national service intake and I went in April 75. And yeah, depot training was just as awful as expect. A lot of marching and running and not learning a lot, but enough to get by. And then sent to Missouri. And I heard the interview with Murphy, the rugby player, and they were talking about Teeny Martin and Donnie Martin, who were in New Zealand. I knew them quite well. I used to go and have tea with them when I was on patrol. And I must tell you about Lurch. You know, the Martins and Skakes and all those rugby players were recruited by the Udzi and New Zealand rich tobacco farmers to come as farm managers and play rugby. And Lurch was, I think his name was Muller, but I'm not sure. But I knocked on his door on a patrol. I'm 6'2", and I looked up and up and up, and he was standing there, 6'9", locked and he looked like the Lurch from the Adams Family. God, I thought, wow. I said, were you a rugby player in Stellenbosch? Yeah. So yeah, they were seated around, and there was another one in Uzi called Smith. Did you ever come across Marion Smith anywhere?
No.
He was the son of one of those rugby players that came up. He was in the same intake as me, and he was a geologist. We used to be in the same party stick during police. He was an interesting guy, but he got killed in that Air India disaster that went into the sea, into the Indian Ocean. Remember that in 70,
Yes. Yes.
85 or something? Yeah, he was on that, which was a shame because he was a really nice guy. But yeah, so being a policeman in New Zealand was not an onerous job. You weren't dealing with a huge amount of crime. You're dealing with a lot of rubbish, really. The worst thing was when you had the main highway come through and the car crash cases there were horrendous. There was a famous corner just in the New Zealand section that the camber had been put the wrong way, and many a car went flying off the road when it tried to go around the corner fast, and it was the wrong way, and so we had lots of accidents there. So that was our main thing, but yeah, it was pretty decent. You had a mess, just two of us in a mess. Mal Hughes was the PO, and I think he's been on Fighting Men in Rhodesia as well.
Right.
There was a Mount Hughes, but I didn't recognize him. It's far too competent for the one I knew. But anyway, yeah, he was the other one, and we had a small team, and mainly we just patrolled TTLs and farming areas, and it was all right. But then we were sent for party training.
I believe you guys used to pay what 55 had to pay 55 cents per meal or something.
Yeah, when I got to the mess and I said, how does this work? I said, oh, we buy our food and we keep all the receipts, and it claims out at 55 cents a meal. And I said, are we not allowed to spend more than 55 cents? He said, I don't know, says Mel. I said, well, why not? I'm happy to get 55 cents back from the government and spend 20 cents on the extra. So I said, oh, that's a good idea. So we started eating a lot better. And it came to that's how cheap things were. 79 cents was considered outrageous. And I'll just a guy called McDonald phoned Rob Reedy, my SO. What the hell is your NSPO doing? 79 cents? I said, no. When he said to me, I said, I only asked you for 55, but my receipts were for 79, so I pay the rest. Oh, no one had ever thought of it before. So that was that. So yeah, that was pretty good. Then Rob Reedy got a bee in his bonnet, and he sent me on a bicycle patrol in the TTL for a week, which was extremely difficult, I can tell you. Carrying a pack, driving a bicycle is not a good idea. And it was horrible. So I came back early. I jumped on a bus, me and the constable, and we got back, sneaked into the station on the Friday afternoon because we knew Rob was going on party pull-up and he wouldn't be there. So I'm sitting in the mess having a drink, and I look out the window and there's Rob Reedy walking at me. Oh no, he's coming to see me, coming up here, and he thinks I'm on patrol, but I was stuck. I couldn't leave. He says, what are you doing here? And I said, what are you doing here? And so anyway, he caught me, but never again. But yeah, it was interesting. And like nearly all the NSPOs, they asked me to sign up for regular. And I said, nah, I'm going to work in agriculture, double your wage. If you sign me up as an inspector immediately, then I'll do it. But as a PO, it's just not worth it, or even an SO wouldn't be worth it. So yeah, we were sent for party training, and we went to Mtali, and I don't know why they did it, but they put us in the back of an open Land Rover and drove at 30 k's an hour across this hard sports field and told us to jump out. And we jumped out, and we made the most amazing bloody somersaults and crashes, and it's no wonder nobody broke anything. And I used to think in the war, when we were driving down dirt roads, if they saw what we drive through, they wouldn't ask us to jump out because you'd smack yourself straight into the tree. You wouldn't get 5 meters before you were completely chaosed. Yeah, so with that excessive training, we went off to the Hondi Valley because St. Augustine's mission had most of their kids taken one night, and we were meant to go and stop them if they came back. But it was a disaster. First of all, we had an inspector from BSAP in charge of NSPOs. And when he got to the Hondi Valley, the SO in charge of the station said, no, you can't stay here. And we said, well, we're meant to stay out in the bush. But we've got a Land Rover. We've got stretchers. We can't live in the bush. Yes, you can. And that guy became the boyfriend of my brother-in-law's sister. So I gave him hell for the next 10 years over that decision. I was really annoyed. It was horrible. We walked all night in freezing cold weather, and then we tried to sleep in the day in hot sun. So it was a disaster. And I had no idea what to take on a party trip. I didn't have any gloves. It's my first trip. No one said anything. Just pitch up and go. So after that, I got more organized, but it was quite miserable. And then they misused us, which is probably correct because we didn't know how to fight. We were not well trained at that point. And we would be sent, we were sent to Penalonga, and there's a big sawmill there. And we had to walk on the border, which was high above the sawmill and completely covered in little river indentations. So it was extremely difficult. Didn't achieve anything. There were no CTs there. It was just open. It was just pine trees on one side, Mozambique on the other. And it was hard work though, because it was wet the whole time. It never stopped drizzling. When we got out, you could see a cloud sitting over our hill that we'd spent 5 days walking across, and nobody else had it. They were all in sunshine. So it's a bit weird. And then another time we were sent to Cashel, and they just sent us driving around in our Land Rover, looking at doing some OPs and stuff. But then we went back to Hundy Valley, and we were sent in because 4 months before, Prima had been there and had been taking pot shots at the fencing team. So they sent up an armored car who blew their headquarters to pieces, and they all left. And then the patrols in the Hundy Valley just petered out because there was nobody there. So they sent us down to patrol the whole length of it. We were meant to walk right down to the tea estate. And first night, we are in bed, the guards up the hill watching, and we just hear these truck noises coming. What the hell? So we all climb up the hill, and we just see lights after lights after lights after lights after lights. 30 big trucks come down the Frelimo side. So we reported to Jock, and they said, oh shit, you're the only people there. So we said, oh, okay, fine. And the next morning we went down to the river, and we could see just Frelimo everywhere. About 300 we estimate. And we were watching, and there were women weeding in the fields on the other side of the river, outside the border. Suddenly they vanished, and we knew, something's going to happen here. So we pulled back, but then we saw them all running down to the edge of the fields with RPGs and RPDs and mortars and just the general whole range of equipment. And so we pulled back into a hollow, and we told them what was happening. And they said, okay, keep an eye on them. And then they opened up on us, but we were in the hollow. We didn't fire back because there were 5 of us and there were 300 of them. And we thought it could be an invasion, which was rather nerve-wracking. And anyway, they told us to go back to the road, and they'd send a vehicle to us and send an army stick down to keep an eye on us. That was a bit nerve-wracking, I must say, finding those people just arrived. And and then we went to Cashel. That was just a lovely trip. You just drove around Cashel's quite a pretty place. So, you're up in the mountains and then down across the trip. So it was pretty useless part 2 training and part 2 doing. But then we left, and I went to Empledorn, and I didn't tell the police where I'd gone. I kind of thought, I'm in the government, they'll know where I am. But they didn't. And, what do they call it? Continuous call-up came along in a month later, and most of the young men in Empledorn vanished, and I was still there, and I thought, gee, they didn't seem to know I'm here. So I wrote to them, and 3 days later, got a letter saying, you will pitch up tomorrow here. So I thought, I'm in deep trouble here. And I go up to Morris Depot, and there's 80 of us. So I thought, okay, I'm not the only one. There's 80 of us who've not told them where they were. And they gave us a 5-day party training with Reg Seekings and Boyd, the RSM from Llewellyn. He retired, and he was much feared in Llewellyn, but much beloved by Party. He was such a lovely man. It's hard to believe people who've been in Llewellyn don't think that, but he was really nice. And Seekings, he was ex-SAS in the Second World War, and he tried to turn us into sort of SAS, which wasn't going to work. We were not really interested in doing that. So then we started, at the end of that party, we went back to Morris Depot, and they said, can Bruce Douglas and Andy Humphreys go to the office? And I thought, what have we done? So we wander off, and they say, we're sending you to Mtwali. You're joining the CAT team, and you'll be working with censor. And we thought, the CAT team, what the hell is that? And censor? We don't do censoring of letters in this army, I don't think we do it in this war. And we said, what is it? And they said, we don't know. So we put on a train, and we go down to Mtwali, and we picked up, taken to Jock, which was, I think, in old Beatles Hotel. And first things, the MP says, "Who are you?" He said, "Well, we've come to see Sensor." And Andy Humphrey hasn't got a belt on, which in part is neither here nor there, but in army, it's one of the major crimes you can commit, I believe. And he wouldn't let him in because he didn't have a belt. And Andy was getting really annoyed. And I said, "Andy, shut up, man. I don't want to be in the bloody brig the first night we get here. Please, can you just send a message? You want to see Sensor?" So he went off and got Sensor, who was actually part of PSYOPs. And it turned out the CAT was a civil action team. And we were going to put in PVs in the Solid Valley, which was a new thing for us. We'd never heard of such a thing. And the first thing we had to do before we could join our unit, which was already there, was to get a military driving license. And if you're not in the military, getting a military driving license is a little difficult. But the Sensor was, I think, a captain or a major, and he just overruled them and said, "You will train them on Unimogs and Kudus, and you will give them a license." So they did. So we went off. We met them in Finger. There was an army sergeant, I think he was his engineer, Dan Groenewald. Did you ever come across him? Was he in Tolly? He was pretty good, but he was team leader. And then there was Andy and I, and there was, I think, a land inspector and I think an INTAF guy. So, there was also a surveyor from, I think, Lands Department. And our job was to assess the carrying capacity of the TTL around Tanganda irrigation scheme, that one from Birchenough Bridge down to Tanganda. And there was no grass, so there was no carrying capacity, but there were lots of cattle, and they lived on the crop stubble, and they were essential to farm. You couldn't farm without them, so we couldn't take them off. So we had no purpose there. So I thought, well, I'll just train as a surveyor. So I quickly learned how to use the theodolite, and we started surveying. And it was a funny place to survey because it's blooming hot, So you start off at dawn, and you can see 300 meters. By 7:30, you're down to 150. By 8:30, you're down to 100. And by 12 o'clock, you're down to like 15 meters. Otherwise, the heat haze is just too much. You can't read the stuff. And because I would survey, and someone further down would have the staff. And when we got the right point, he would put a peg in, and I had to watch it and walk to it with the theodolite over my shoulders. Quite a heavy thing. It's got a long tripod. So I had a gun bearer behind me. He was carrying my rifle because I had no strap on my rifle, and I couldn't carry both. Because I couldn't turn around to look for my rifle. I had to watch where he put it. I never find it. There are hundreds of bits of cut wood, And I turned around one day and he wasn't there. Because soon after we got there, Special Branch sent word that the CTs know that you're there to put in PVs, and they vowed to stop you. You're not going to get them done. So I thought, yeah, now they vowed to stop me, and my gun is nowhere near me. I can't find it. I went back, found him sleeping. So there was a bit of a reprimand going on. An area that is probably 5 or 6 acres, say 2 hectares, 3 hectares, and it's surrounded by a high security fence. And inside there are roads built and a keep in the middle where INTAF troops normally would be stationed to guard it. And the people from the local area would be moved in, and they'd build huts along the roads, and they would go out to work every day and come back every night. And it was a way that had been used in Malaya very successfully to stop the CTs getting access to food and stuff from the people. It was pretty hard on the people. They sometimes had a long walk to their fields and so on. So it wasn't very popular. And we would find a place on a aerial photograph, and then once we spotted it, we'd shoot down there and survey it in like 3 days, and then we'd move on to another one. And then a team of construction people would come in with graders and bulldozers and make the keep and make the roads and put in the fences, and away they go. And then by then we'd be on 3 or 4. And what used to happen is the CTs would hear that we were there, and they put landmines down for our route, but we moved on, and the army would then detonate the landmines. And this happened so often that they ran out of all vehicles. They didn't have any vehicles left. They had to borrow our vehicles to take their guys out to the field because they just followed us and hit every landmine that had been set for us. Even we gave them our Unimog, and that hit a landmine. You don't want to be in the back of a Unimog that hits a landmine because it's got vertical springs. You just go flying. It's not funny. But yeah, it was quite amusing because we had our vehicles untouched. And then a few weeks after we got there, we were staying in the Tanganda Tea Estates barrack. There's barracks, there's staff housing for the people who are running it. And we were in the very end house right down by the corner. And we were in bed. There was one guy up who was just doing his, we were surrounded by a security fence and there were INTAF guards around. And one guy was still up, he was just updating his survey numbers when 82 millimeter water landed 5 meters from our window and just blew our windows in. And it was loud, very loud, big mortar. And so we climbed out of bed and grabbed our stuff and crawled through into the passage. And from the other side, they fired rockets at the house. The first high explosive rocket we saw the next day had hit the fence and made a hole in it. The second rocket hit a pawpaw tree. Pawpaw tree was seriously damaged. And the third rocket hit the lounge, and my goodness, the ceiling came down, the veranda fell down, the windows broke. It was just a mess. But we were in the passage, and the guy doing his notes, he was sitting like this, facing the area they were shooting from. And as the mortar went off, they opened up on him. And there was a pillar on the veranda. And the pillar had 18 shots just where his head was. And 2 shots went past his ear and went out the back window behind him. So he was just so lucky. If he'd been sitting here, they would have killed him. Because it was very accurate fire. Straight at him, but the pillar was in the way.
That's
and the rest of
unusual.
the bullets, now, when we started shooting back, all the bullets went over the roof. You can see the tracer going off. And that was only those 20 rounds hit the building.
Sure.
So then they fired three anti-tank rockets, which is pointless. Why would you fire an anti-tank rocket at a house that hasn't got any armor to punch in? Anyway, one went into the reinforced concrete, 30 inches. Just drilled its way in. One went through, hit the top of the roof. The roof's like that. It's got that. Took a piece about this big out of that, and the other one went through the louver windows, and there was a French door, and it just punched the lock out. Didn't break any glass. It went straight through, and the lock was just punched out by this high velocity slug. So it was really quite exciting. So we couldn't get to our bunkers because the veranda and the ceiling had fallen down. We couldn't get through, so we were stuck in the passage. And stuck in the passage, you probably haven't got the right angle to shoot down to people on the ground. So we really weren't effective. We fired a lot of rounds, but it didn't hit anyone. But we could have gone to the kitchen windows and shot, but then you're really letting yourself be a target. So so as I said,
were your ears damaged from all the, firing from indoors?
Yeah, well, I was firing left-handed around the door into the kitchen, and another guy was firing right-handed. So every time he fired, the concussion hit my ear. And when I'd finished, after the battle was over, it took about 25 minutes, but they fired 6, I think, 82 mil and about 12, 52 mil at the camp. Nearly all of them hit the big trees above the barracks. But one of the INTAF guys was in bed, and he heard this noise, and this mortar, this 62 mm, came through the roof, came through his ceiling, landed on his floor, and he was under the bed by then, and he just looked at it, and it just broke in half and didn't go off. He just couldn't believe it. No. And and then another amazing thing happened. We had a lot of diesel and petrol drums around, and we also had 2 big tanks, like farm tanks with diesel and petrol. And every single diesel was punctured, and not one petrol was punctured. It was just like it couldn't happen. They were standing right next to each other, but one would get it and one wouldn't. Otherwise, we had a hell of a fire problem. So it was pretty interesting. And then they sent in a chopper because two of the guys, one guy got some shrapnel in his foot, not our guys, INTAF guys, and one got it some in his stomach as he tried to get his rifle, which he'd left in the truck, which wasn't really clever. So a chopper came in, and I was so deaf I didn't even hear it above me, and they had to pull me out the way. And there's a helicopter up there! I can't hear it. I couldn't hear anything for 3 days. And since then, my left ear has been damaged. I've had all the high notes have gone. There's nothing left on it. I can hear the low notes, but yeah, I haven't had a proper hearing since then.
It's funny. I think most of us who were in the war have hearing problems now. I can't hear if there's background, like in a restaurant, if there's lots of background noise, I can't hear what the person's saying.
I struggle with people on when they phone me. Sometimes I can't make out what they're even saying. Yeah. Because it's just like bobbled stuff. But yeah, anyway, so that was a baptism of fire for me. That was the first time anyone had shot at me, so that was quite interesting. And we just carried on doing our stuff. We moved down the valley. We were in the Birkenhead Bridge TTL area, and then we moved down to Tsimbanje, and then we moved back up to Middle Sabi. And yeah, we had some horrible places to stay in. We stayed in a tin-roofed guest house with a bedroom, one room, a bathroom, and a kitchen. And it was just horrendous. You come home and it's like 105 degrees outside and it's like 115 degrees inside. So we used to come back at about lunchtime because you can't do any more surveying. We'd come back and write up our notes and plot it on the map and so on. But then we would just turn the shower on to cold and just go in for 5 minutes, come out, another guy would go in, then you'd evaporate, and then you heat up, and the third guy comes out, you go back in for 5 minutes. We did that from 12 o'clock, about 1:30 to 10:30 at night, because it was just horrendous. It was just so hot. And you couldn't go outside. It was just as hot there. So it was a horrible, horrible place. But then we hit the jackpot. We were moving north, and we drove into there's a research and specialist services, arid farming research place in the Sabi Valley, which I didn't even know. I came from Tanganda, but we found it. And we walked in, and there's a big guest house with about 8 bedrooms, and there were 2 cooks there. So we said, can we stay here? And they said, no, you'll have to get permission. So who do you get permission from? Oh, RNSS. So I thought, okay. So I got a phone and I phoned the director. No one else, the director. Can I speak to the director? Hi, we're a civil action team in the Sabi Valley. Can you let us stay in your guest house? Oh, yeah, it'll cost you. I said, cost us? Oh, okay, how much? 75 cents a day. Okay, we'll take that. And it was lovely. I mean, 2 cooks on hand, air conditioned, beds with sheets, pillows. It was heaven. So we go out every day and we do our surveying and get the thing going, and then we come back. There'd be lunch served. We'd have lunch. We'd settle down and play bridge for the next 6 hours. Then we go to bed in our lovely beds. Oh, it was just brilliant. It was true heaven. I mean, honestly, after living in that hellhole of a hot place, to live in this place was just marvelous. And so that was pretty good. And then we were sent up to Seta to do another one up on near the Wattle Company's things on the edge of the escarpment going down to Sabi Valley. And we were put up in an old, Wattle Company workshop. And yeah, that was a hot area because there were a lot of crossings coming into the country from there. There'd been a police Land Rover that had been blown to pieces, and I think someone had been killed in it. They were still there. And we would go out and there'd also been a big battle there. The buildings that were still there had K-car 50 mil rounds through it and stuff. So it was a pretty hot area, but same problem. We need guards and we need them to follow us around. And they didn't. They got pissed and went and bought booze and finger and went and got drunk under a tree. So it was a bit dicey, but yeah. So the one time I was coming back, having got, we used to go to Jock Chipinga and get steaks and sausages and pork chops and eggs and milk and bread and all fresh food, and we'd bring it back and we'd cook it there. And we even had a cook boy that followed us around. We were joined by two lands inspectors, and they had a budget for a cook. So we were right down the bottom near the Sabi Bridge at the bottom there. There's a mine right down the bottom there somewhere. And when we were down there, we were doing one down there, but it was extremely difficult. One day we were looking at the mine to see if there was a place there we could use. And there was a thermometer on the veranda, and the temperature was 47 degrees. And honestly, you just couldn't even stand up. It was so dim. It was just ridiculously hot. But the same place, this
Is that on the road to Hot Springs, or is that on the road to Chisambanji?
Way belong. You go down a road right through the middle of Chisambanji, and there's a bridge that goes to the triangle there.
Yeah, I know the one.
Towards the Mozambique border.
Okay. I was trying to orientate my brain. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, right down
I know the exact road you're talking about. Been on it many times.
So we put out the word we need a cook, and this guy comes real ragamuffin, really not well dressed at all. And he says, "I've come to ask you want to cook?" So we looked at him and said, "Yeah, we want someone who can cook our kind of food." And he raises himself up and he says, "I was the chief chef at the Chiredzi Golf Club." So we said, "Hey, okay, yes, you can come." So he followed us around, and it was great. He'd come in early, he'd make breakfast for us. We eat it before it's light, and we get in a vehicle and we go off so that just as it gets light, we get to our site and we can start surveying, because that's when you're most productive. And he just followed around cooking for us. He didn't need to come to. We didn't have him when we went to the research station, but the other places we had him for the south. So that was a different type of call up from most people. And at the end of that, end of the finger thing. Oh yes, coming back from one day from getting food, I'd fallen asleep in the passenger seat, and I meant to stop him before he went on the dirt road and go in the back. But he didn't wake me up, so I woke up when I was on it. And I thought, hell! And about 2 seconds later, we hit a landmine, and it was lucky. It was the back left wheel and not the front left wheel. So we hit a landmine. Up we went, and I found out something interesting. You can't prepare for a landmine. Your brain doesn't know what the hell is going on when you hit a landmine. It doesn't have anything to relate to. So my brain said, "You've just been bombed from a plane," but I knew that there was not a chance I'd been bombed from a plane. And then two of us were, then trucks came up, they got all the rations, took all the stuff. Two of us waited with the truck for the engineers to come and grab it. And it rained recently, and I was idly kicking the tops of the puddles, and nothing else to do. And I kicked one, and there was a fertilizer sack underneath. And I thought, oh shit, that was horrible. So we realized that kicking it wasn't going to set it off, otherwise we'd both be dead. And we waited, and then one of the wattle company wives came out and found another one outside her gate. So they'd been busy, and only one out of the three went off. And then we finished and went back to Harare, and didn't know what we were going to do. And then something really weird happened. I was called in and said, "We're sending you to Motoko. You're going to be doing ground coverage in Zumba, I think it was, and one above that. I was dropped at a place called Nyakasoro, I think it was. And I thought, I've never done ground coverage. I've never done any intelligence training. What are you doing?" And they said, "No, you go. It's all right." So I thought, oh, well, better than anything else, I suppose. So I go to Motoko, and they brief me quickly, and I'm given a PRO plane, Peace Reserve Air Wing plane, and a pilot to take me to Nakasoro. And I don't know if you've ever been in one of those, but he flies quite high until he's over the airstrip, and then he just dives like a Stuka straight down to the. Whoa! He just dives, and then he's in. he doesn't want to be hanging around with a long approach. He didn't warn me that. I thought we were crashing. Anyway, get to Nyakasoro, and I didn't stay there for long. I was taken down to a roads department camp in, I think it's Zumba or something like that. The next TTL down, anyway. Yeah, that place had high ground all around us. We were like this. It's just high ground all around us, and I was living in a caravan, which is not exactly the best thing to stop bullets. So it was a bit nerve-wracking, but we had a what's called a CV, which is a communal village, I think, or conventional village. Anyway, everyone's made to live in the same area, but there's no fence.
Was it Mangwende?
Yes, I think that's it. Yes, Mangwende.
Okay. I spent time in Mataka and Fungwi area, so
Yeah.
Marewa.
So yeah, we went up. We used to go out before dawn in our truck. I had a team of support unit guys and a couple of army guys, and we used to go off before dawn and surround the place and try and catch the Majibas, which are the young men who go and, teenagers who go and help them. And we caught 3 one day, and from those 3, I managed to get one to agree to show the team where to go to find the CTs. And I decided I wasn't going to go because I had no training at that point to do this sort of thing. And I had these, support unit that's their thing, and the army guys, and they went off with the informer. And when they got there, they were spotted by the sentry, and everyone got away. 3, 4, 5 weeks of graft just in flames. And soon after that, my call-up came to an end, and I went back to Engeldorn. And then I joined Part 2, NS National Service Part 2, based out of Salisbury, and went back for more training from Seekings and Boyd. And we did some work down in Nyanga for a while, and then then I moved to Mvuma, and I was transferred to Midlands Part 2, and that was interesting. We went on a Padu course, and the instructor was a captain in the British Para, and allegedly he had fled to Rhodesia because the IRA were after him for Bloody Sunday, which he had been in charge of. So that was the story he sort of said. And that's when we learned to be soldiers. He really taught us well. He gave us a lot of good ideas. He taught us a lot. He made us work like hell. But that's when I got the confidence. I really got the first lot of confidence that I could operate in the bush because, he just was so thorough in what he taught us. And after that, we started getting called up. And living in Mvuma had the downside is that when you weren't on call-up, you were in the local reaction stick. So while your mates went back to Gweru or Kwekwe or somewhere, you went back to Mvuma, and every time there was an incident, the phone would ring and we'd all rush out and go to the police station and then go and investigate. So that was quite stressful, living two different wars at the same time. But once we got going, we got into, we were sent to pretty well all places in the Midlands or Maryland. Funnily enough, I never set foot on the other side of the Great Dyke, which pretty well bisected the country. I did everything on the right, never on the left, not one day on the left. So we would go down to Wanda and White Bridge and Thule and places like that. And there were some weird jobs. A whole lot of West Nicholson farmers had bought a whole lot of Thule cattle from the Thule TTL. And on the way back, the herders who were bringing them back to the farmers were stopped by the CTs who drove them all back to the TTL. and they sent the RAR in to find 800 cattle, but they couldn't find the 800 tule because they'd hidden them. But we found lots of other. They found lots of other tule, and we were sent in to secure the loading pens and the yards. So we were sent in as party to just look off, make sure they were safe and that they weren't a target. And they went off and rounded up cattle. The cattle trucks came in. I mean, it must have caused such havoc because the cattle we took weren't sold. They were someone else's property, but they were just taken because we couldn't find the ones that were stolen. And I hate to think how they sorted it all out when we left. But then we had to escort the cattle trucks back to Birchmount Bridge. And honestly, if you've done that on a dusty dirt road, you've eaten so much dust that it was pointless. They could have blown up the trucks in front of us. We wouldn't have known. We couldn't see anything. It was zero visibility, zero breathing. And we did that for about 10 days, backwards and forwards, getting till we had enough cattle. And so we did some weird things. We were sent to Salukwi and a couple of times, but one time we went down to an abandoned farmhouse, and then at about midnight we started walking towards the Salukwi TTL until the idea was to go and do an OP from a hill just over the border. And we wanted to get up there before dawn, and we climbed this hill. I was always lead scout. I always insisted I was the front guy. I did not trust anyone else to do it. I felt I'd be more alert if I was at the front. And we climbed this hill and we got to the top, and there's another hill just 50 meters away. We said, oh, no, wrong hill. So we had to climb down. Now it's light, and we climbed this hill. And now we're really tired. We've been walking since midnight, and it's now like 6:10 or something. We climbed one hill, climbed down a hill. Now we're climbing another hill, and we're really tired because we're carrying a week's worth of stuff. Climb to the top, and there's a nice circular flat area with some rocks on the left and little trees around the outside. And I think, wow, this is going to be cool. We can settle down here. It's going to be really nice. And I'm halfway across this circle, and I hear voices from my left. And I look up, and there's a CT commander standing on a rock talking to his people that side, not this side. And I think, it's like 4 meters away. So I do this, I put my thumb down to the people behind me that, they should know we're in deep shit. I'm in the middle of a circle, not a skinning of cover anywhere. And if he sees me, it's going to be interesting. Anyway, he didn't. And then just as I was moving, just taking my pack off and just moving towards him, I hear this voice from one of the guys on my stick. Who's talking? And I said, yeah, I'm dead. He's going to hear that and he's going to turn around. And he didn't. So the stick leader and I crawled to the edge of the rocks and we took him out. And then a guy ran across to the right, and I still don't know how I missed him, but I double tapped him 4 times and I didn't hit him once. And he was only like 12 feet away, 12 meters away. But he was running to his rockets, and we captured 6 rockets and a rocket launcher from his place. He couldn't get it. We were putting down too much fire.
So you shot the terrorist commander then, who was on the rock?
Yeah, and we got his notebooks, we got his weapons, and we went down tried to follow them, but it went on to, Dombo Shawa's got those big rock.
Yeah.
Well, this had a similar thing, and they'd gone across that. So we not that we could track anywhere, but we couldn't see anything. So we then told 2 of our people to wait at the top where the body was and the stuff, so that it was guarded. And we just went down to see what was happening down the bottom, and we found a hut full of blankets and pots and pans. So obviously they'd been used for the group. So we set it alight, and there was rock next. It was built on the edge of the rocks. There were rocks all around, and there was a field coming around 3 ways like that. And we're sitting. I mean, we felt utterly euphoric. We'd survived a dodgy position, and we'd won, and it was a wonderful feeling. And we were cock of the hoop. And then we heard bullets going off. And we thought, they must have stored bullets in the roof, it must be them. And then a bloody mortar landed 3 feet from me. But in the field, not on the rock. And it was a foot from the rock where I was sitting. Would have been all wiped out if it had hit the rock, but it hit the field and went straight up.
Yeah.
So then we thought, oh shit, that's not that. So now we had no cover because we were on a slope like this. And so I crawled behind a rock about as big as this sort of thing, about a foot high, but my legs are higher than my head. And then I noticed a machine gun. In the cowboy movies, you see, or war movies, you see machine gun firing in an arc. You see tick, 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 all the bullet strikes, and it's coming in a semicircle straight at my head. And I'm just looking at this, and I think, yay, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And it stopped a foot away, and then went back, and then it came back, and then it went back. And I thought, this is horrible. And I'm shooting, but I don't know where I'm shooting because we can't see anything. It's just trees in front of us. And man, it was nerve-wracking watching this thing come at me and just stop and go back. And then we decided, look, we've got to get out of here. We're in a very invidious position. So we gave our ammo that we had left for a few rounds to one guy, and he put down covering fire while two of us ran up this hill with our backs to the fire, which was another interesting thing. And then we put down fire, and he came out. And when we went afterwards and had a look at where they'd been firing from, they'd been up on this rock. And all the the expended doppies were around where the RPD gunner had been firing. And there was a big tree about 3 foot in diameter right in front of him. And I was just around the corner, couldn't see me. So he could only fire as far as the tree, and then he'd come back. Pee and come back, and that was a foot before. So that day, I thought I was going to die when I was in the middle of the round area at the top. I nearly died when the mortar missed the rock by a foot, and then I had this machine gun that just missed me by a foot because he couldn't get past the tree. So it was a very lucky day for me.
Yeah.
And so that was quite a shock that they came back.
That unusual.
Not what we've been led to believe, that once they run, they run. But they came back, which hats off. But they didn't do any damage to us. None of us got slightest wounds, so we were fine. And of course, we had no radio for the two up there, so they didn't know what the hell was going on. They didn't want to start shooting in case they shot us. And it was a mess. We shouldn't have done that, but we did. And then actually a chopper came with a resupply of ammo and collect the body and the loot, and it was quite surprising. But anyway, we stopped, and we then just carried on patrolling, and nothing more happened. And
so you loaded the body of the dead commander onto the chopper and the RPG-7s and all that?
Yeah, and his AK and all his notebooks, his 2 notebooks.
Yeah. Gosh, before you move on, I was just thinking, I know you kind of skim over some of these things, but you've had some really fortuitous or lucky escapes. I mean, like when you fell asleep, in the front of the vehicle when you should have been sitting in the back.
Probably missed it by about an inch.
I mean, that's like a miracle. That's like a miracle. I mean, I once had a situation like that too.
I hardly believe that I got through with not a single scratch, despite all these close calls. But this happens in war, man. Other people get the most unlucky result, and others just get the luckiest of results. Yeah, and then another time we went down to Rhodesia, and the local party stick was doing their 2 weeks, and we were told to join them. Now, these were young farmers in their late 20s, 30s, fit as a fiddle. We were city boys or town boys, and they walked us to death. We walked for like 6 hours without stopping, not once. Eventually, I managed to get forward to the stick leader and said, "Can we just take 5 minutes, please? We're bucket. It's hot as any. This is Matubi too. It's really hot here, and we'd like a cup of tea." "Oh, okay." So he says, "Take 5." And we sat there for 3 hours. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what he was thinking. And anyway, we carried on with them, and we had 3 different party sticks to work with in that 6 weeks. And we worked so hard. We walked so far, and it was so hot that one of my stick was a rather rotund guy. He lost 22 kgs. He went from like 85 to like 63, and I went from 85 to 75. I got tick bite fever then as well, and that's pretty grim.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were walking down. We were patrolling to the south, and the local party stick was about a half a k up on the north of us. And I walked into a CT camp that was right at the right in front of me, and I read something about Old Schulenburg doing the same thing and ran through it. So I just started running, looking for anything I could shoot, but it was completely empty. And I got to the end, and I called the other guys. They came through. We reported that we'd found this big camp. We couldn't find out where we were because we were stuck in the flat Matibi 2 with lots of trees. So I climbed a tree, took some readings on some far hills, and managed to find our position. And we then reported it, and they said they sent a truck to collect it all. And we were walking down towards the road when we had a rocket hit the tree above us. And we had a quick firefight. We didn't see them. And when we got through the bush, we found a lot of women and children, and one kid had been killed. But we don't know whether we killed it or they did. We just don't know. And that was lucky. Again, if they'd been close enough to see me in the tree, they would have slotted me. You know, I climbed a tree to get a bearing because we didn't know where we were. And we bumped into them about 30 seconds later. So, yeah, it was pretty close. And then another time in Salukwi, no, it was in the Gwanda area. We were in at night they had a total curfew. It was a no-go area, I think they called it that. But you could shoot anyone who was walking around at night. And we were coming through this village, and we saw someone in white running across in front of us like that, probably about 70 meters away. So two of us just waited for him, and as he came around, we slotted him. We thought we got a CT, and we ran over to him, and he was a 12-year-old kid. And the parents were howling in the house, and we felt absolutely awful. The story was they knew it was a curfew area. They knew you could be shot if you went out, but he had come back with one of his goats missing. And he had begged his parents to let him go and look for it. And they said, no, you can't. It's dangerous out there. But he went, and he was coming back, and that's what we saw him. It was the most awful period of that time. It was just so hard to handle that we'd actually done that to some kid. But it was an okay area. We were in our rights to shoot him, but we didn't know who he was. We thought he was an adult. He was so far away. But
curfew breaker.
Yeah, but just for a goat, you know. Well, first of all, you heard of Van Dyke, Colonel Van Dyke?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was in charge of RAR when we were down in the Gwanda area. And there was another mass abduction of kids from a mission school in the south of Plumtree. And he was called out, and he took his RAR. The RAR trackers ran for 40 Ks, tracking them. They ran the whole way, tracking them. I mean, honestly, it was hot as hell, and they were running. And then the rest of the RAR came and went after them and ran up to the border. And then we were called in, and I met Van Dyke, and he said, I'm trying to get permission for us to go over because there's a big Botswana village there, and we want to go in and get these people back. And I said, yeah. And he said, this road here, if we go in there, the Botswana Defence Force will come down this road. And we want you to go and ambush them and hold them at bay. And we said, but how far into Botswana is that? He said, it's about 30 Ks. So we said, yeah. And once we've held them at bay, how are we going to get out? I'll think of that. And we said, oh my God, no, I don't think I want to do this. And then he was on to Jock. I was standing with him, and Jock said, what are you thinking? You can't invade Botswana. Don't be stupid. No, you can't do it. Get your people back. Because that could have been really hairy, being stuck in the middle of Botswana fighting the BDF with 5 people. The thing about Part 2, though, we never had a machine gun. We only had rifles.
Yeah.
So, we didn't have a lot of firepower beyond our rifles. Although that didn't seem to worry us. We figured we could use them to good effect.
When you say Colonel Van Dyke, do you mean Lionel Dyke?
Oh, Lionel Dyke, yes, Lionel Dyke, not Van Dyke, not Van Dyke. Lionel Dyke, yeah. Yeah, he was a real warrior, that man. He just wanted to fight.
And still is. He's still operating.
Goodness me. Yeah, no, he was dangerous. We actually worked with the RAR in Lingui, I think. There was this big valley, and they knew good were in there. I mean, CTs, so they carefully surrounded it with RAR, and then started moving down, and they stopped RAR troops down the bottom, and we were right at the top with the very top people, and they did get some CTs to move, and then the corporal of the RAR spotted them, and he called in a lynx to hit them with rockets or Frentham or something, and the guy hit the wrong target. And this corporal of the RAR gave him 1,000 words. He was so angry with him. You useless white bugger, get on with it, get down there. And it was quite a thing, but yeah. And another time I think we were in Zulupi, and we were, I think, on a big rock doing an OP, and we heard over the radio a hunter strike go in on a village about 50 k's away, and we were listening to them on the radio, and honestly, they're flying jets, and you think they're flying microlights trying to shoot these people. I mean, honestly, they're so close, and the wingman is saying, boss, my gas is running out. Yeah, I know, but one more sortie. No, boss, I can't get back. One more sortie. Okay, boss, I'm going. All right, I'll go with you. And he didn't want to leave the main pilot. He just wanted to keep shooting at people, but it was very entertaining. By the afternoon, sitting on a hill, it was quite fun. So what we did as Part 2 was often go into areas that hadn't had security forces for a while and have a look around, which was, not ideal, but it was one of the things they liked us to do, as in the Hondi Valley. And this time we were sent to a TTL in the Gwanda area, and we were warned, don't go into the next TTL. Salute Scouts are in there, but go and see what's going on in this one. And there were no other troops, and there hadn't been troops for 3 months in there. So we said, okay, if we go in there and then we get into a fight, is Fire Force available? No. Is Chopper Kazovac available? No. So if we get wounded, how are you going to get us out? You walk to the road and we'll pick you up by truck. And if we can't walk, we'll carry you to the road. We said, I don't think you're on our side much. So we thought, this is not really suitable. There's no support here. We are on our own. And we walk in and we've done 100 meters. And we come to a path that's just covered in military boots. Just covered in it. We know no one's been here in 3 months. So we follow the boots into a village, and we talk to the headman, and it takes a bit of persuasion, but he says, look, all hell's about to break out here. There were 3,000 Zanla. The boundary was Zanla on one side, Zipra on the other. This is where the boundary was. And Salute Scouts went into the Zanla one. 3,000 Zanla moved into the Zipra area. There were 2,000 Zipra in this TTL. They freaked out and called for 5,000 more to come in. And 5 of us have walked in the middle of this thing. And we thought, if we have a contact, everyone will think it's Zipra Zanla contact. They'll come running at us. And there'll be thousands of them. and there's so many boots, they've got to be everywhere. So we said, no, we're not doing this. This is totally stupid. So we told them what we'd found, and we found a forest, we went into the very middle, and we hid there for 5 days because it was just too dangerous to walk around there. Can you imagine walking into that lot? I mean, honestly,
and you didn't have machine guns or anything.
No,
at least as RLI, we used to have a few MAGs, but you guys didn't
machine
even
gun every 4 people, man. No, the most we got once we had a brain gun, the 30-round mag, and we were offered. They took Brownings out of the Spitfires in the museum and put shoulder things on them and triggers. They weighed twice as much as an MAG. It was much too heavy. So I think one farmer party stick took one out, but you just couldn't carry it. And it went through, it fired at like 4 times the rate of a MAG. So it went through ammo like nobody did. It sounded like paper ripping when it fired. And we fired it on the range, and it was just, and then it was gone. I mean, this is from a plane. It carries thousands and thousands of rounds. It's not like humans could carry thousands and thousands of rounds to feed this thing. And it was paper feeder. So you can imagine what happened in the bush. So, no, we had nothing like that. So, that was 79. And by the time I'd, that last call up, I just said, no, this is getting ridiculous. And I went to the Mvuma police and said, is there any chance you can sign me up again as an A Reserve policeman? And they said, yeah, we'll try. And they put it through, and I was given the role of an ASP, an A Reserve patrol officer for the last 6 months of the war. And I spent my time in Mvuma, 1 day in the police, 1 day in my work. And it was during the election, the first election, the Mzrewa election. And then, then in the main election, I was asked as a government person to be a polling officer.
Okay.
And we were given what was that armored vehicle that we made ourselves? Was that a Hippo? Kudu was a taller vehicle. It was a squatter vehicle that we had anyway. No, it wasn't as big as that. It was the size of a Kudu, but not as tall.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what we were given, and it was armored, and we had a British Bobby with us, and we had INTEF guy and the driver and me. We were armed, but he wasn't. The Bobby wanted a gun, but we wouldn't give it to him. He said, it's not fair. I came here so I could shoot people. They were right wing as anything, those Bobbies. Anyway, so we were followed around by Panorama, BBC Panorama.
Right.
And I was shown throwing a ZANU-PF poll official out of a voting place that he was encroaching on. And then we were at a mission, and we were trying to push back the press, and they filmed us telling them to move back. So it was my swan song, be on BB. And he went home, and then he sent me a letter saying we were on Panorama, you and I, about during the election. But it was quite interesting. I mean, when we were in Mvuma, we had a NSPO much later intake than mine was there, and he was sent off into the TTL to go to the main business center to see what is going on. He and a constable, and he comes around a corner, and there's 3,500 CTs in the village come for a demob, and he just and he thought, I'm cooked. This is not going to go well. So he got out, and they came forward, and they shook his hand, and quite happy to see him. And he came home telling war stories. It was very close. So at the end it was fine, and then I finished as an A reservist, and that was that.
Gosh, Bruce, thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed your stories. I know you have a lot more stories.
Didn't tell you
Yeah.
about the elephant.
I was going to ask you
So
about that. Yeah.
we were choppered into Goneril Zoo, which was the only chopper ride I ever had in the whole war. Can you believe? And yeah, we were meant to ambush a camp that they'd found. But when we got there, it was raining and it didn't stop raining for like 4 days. So it was very miserable. But nobody came. And then we had to walk out. And if you've ever been in Goneril Zoo, they've cut, especially on the outskirts, they've cut sea control lines through it. And it's very coarse sandy. So the sand's rolled into the roads. So the roads are about a foot deep in this stuff. And we had to walk out about 30, 40 Ks out of here. It was just horrendous. It was like walking on a bad beach, 1 foot forward, half a foot back. And we were absolutely buggered. We come around the corner and then, 12 meters away are 3 elephants on our road. And we just thought, we just don't need this. So we just sat down in the shade and watched them. We thought, we can't even shoot them to stop them, because if they charge, they'll land on us if we shoot them. So we're going to die or we're going to not die. We're just going to sit them. And we just sat and looked at them, and they sat and looked at us. 25 minutes we sat there with 3 elephants 12 meters away, just looking at us. Quite relaxed, ears down, quite relaxed. It was just magical. Honestly, it was wonderful. And then they just vanished into this thick Mapani scrub without a sound. I don't know how they did it. But we had the problem then of, where do we go? If we walk up the road and they're just a foot off the path, it could be dangerous. So we went into the Mapani scrub. It took us half an hour to go around that thing. It's so dense, because the elephants knock down all the Mapani trees, and they're all coppice, and they just make this huge tangle, which is almost impossible. But that was good. And there was another story from Chile that I liked. At Chile, we were down at the police station, and we were just patrolling around the area. It was horrible. It was just barren as anything. But they took us one evening to the Shashi River comes down, and then it does a right angle turn, goes past Chile. So they took us to the headland above it, and they showed us at sundown. We sat there on chairs having beers, and the sun comes down right over the river, and the whole river just turns gold. And it's a wide river. It's about 40 meters wide and long. So the whole river just goes gold. It really was just a wonder. So that was pretty good. Yeah. So there were lots and lots of, you saw a lot of the country moving around that you wouldn't see normally.
Yeah.
Yeah, elephants and buffalo and lion and a lot. But yeah.
You're making us all homesick for Africa again, brother.
Sure. Yes.
Bruce, thank you so much.